Some of these images I'll be needing to take only a portion of it out and place it into the main document. In order to do this, I'll be needing to make a clipping path. For clipping paths, we'll be using the pen tool. The pen tool is right here in our menu on the left side of the screen. And once we have this, the pen tool itself looks like a calligraphy pen. And we're going to make sure that it's selected for a path. And we're going to make sure that we have the exclude overlapping shapes selected. And then we need to make sure that whenever we go and make a clipping path, that we zoom up onto the image very tightly. Now, when we make a clipping path, we can quickly see how easily it is to just click and drag to create a curve. But what you need to do in order to move this line around without having the clipping path take this Bezier line here and move it out in a huge curve, we want to hold the Alt key down and click right here on the point. This gets rid of 1/2 of that Bezier anchor point line and lets us go back to pulling in and dragging. Once we get to there, one more time, hold the Alt key down, click, and it goes away. And continue on and repeat the process with the Alt key over and over until you have the shape you're after. Another key function in using the tools is holding down the space bar to have the hand show up so that you can drag the image up along and see more of it. Instead of holding the Alt key down when you have an anchor point on a Bezier line, you can hold the Command key down and you'll get the hollow point arrow. The hollow point arrow is a nice selection tool that will allow you to grab that anchor point and move it over, and only affect the curve on the upper half. So now that we've been able to create our clipping path, we can go over here to our clipping path menu, and we can see that it's already lined up right here and it's saved as work path. Now that's a default name, and we should probably go ahead and give this an actual name. Now this is a point I like to point out here, and that's that if you deselect it, your clipping path disappears. So if you want to select it like that, now your clipping path is back on the image again. So to name this, we double click it and it saves the path. And we call this fetal position to match the other document. Now this stays, the clipping path stays with the document that it's created in. So when we go to save this, this will be there. If you didn't save it, then it still might be there as a work path, but you might actually end up having a document in which you have multiple paths for different images to pull from the same document. So you would have different ones. The whole point of making the clipping path was to select this, and to do that, we right click and make selection. Now in here we have the ability to change some settings, and right now the default settings is just fine the way it's at. And we hit OK. Now earlier I had told you about having our pen tool here and wanting to make sure that we had exclude overlapping shapes. Now there's a point to this. Having exclude overlapping shapes gives you a compound path so that this part actually cuts out and all we're getting is the body. So now all we have to do is a copy, Command C, and go over to our other document, and a paste, Command V. And as you can see, we're on the top of our layer list, and we do have this already in the background, and you can tell that that one is facing in the opposite direction. So if you want to make that happen, we go up here to edit, transform, and we can flip it horizontally, and that makes them face the other direction. We also had our embryo here kind of cocked a little bit to kind of make him look like he's floating in some kind of a tube. So we need to rotate him. So same thing, edit, transform, rotate. And when we get to the tool and we get right next to it, it becomes this handy little double arrow on a curve. So we grab the point of one side of this, and now we have it. We can also go straight over here to the transformer without hitting enter to make that take effect. We can also scale it to kind of match up. Now we can also move it around. And now we've got it in position we like where it's at, and we can hit enter, and that puts it right into place and holds everything into position. Now we can move this below and hide the previous embryo. And there you have it. Now, if you wanted to make sure that this kind of didn't have this cutout look to it and you wanted to blend it into your background a little bit more, by holding down the command key, you can select, while clicking on the layer, you can select the image and all it is retained within that layer. And by doing this, we can now go to select, modify, border, and our width is based on pixels. Pixels are based on your DPI, so that may change from image to image. Right now we're at 300, so let's try it at 4 and see what we get. It looks fairly reasonable. Let's hide that for a second. That's a Command H. And let's go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And as you can see, that hard edge, if we just grab this and move it around, that hard edge has now become blurred. And it gives it a nice soft effect and creates a look like it's actually part of the background. And it no longer has this cutout effect. Now you can change this. Right now we've got a pretty good blur that is reasonable and not out of control. So I like that. So under the Command H, that brings it back out from hiding. A Command D deselects it. We no longer have it selected. Go over here to our tool palette and grab our move tool, and we can move the layer around if we need to. Right now we have it there. So that pretty much concludes the entire process of a clipping path. Next, we'll get into blending modes.